Hello, everybody. Welcome to Swarm PRs. You'll have me, Aggro, and with me we have Vini. Say hello, Vini.
Hello, it is me, your moderator.
And it is our honor and our duty to give you these PRs. We apologize for the slight delay. And another PSA, if you have any problems with where you've placed or our comments on your teams, send all your messages towards Sansan in his DMs. He largely overlooked where we placed everyone, especially the comments we're making. So yeah, without further ado, Vinny, please introduce us.
So we're starting off with Among Us Blaster, aka Brother Quang, and his team. I'm gonna say happy birthday real quick. He has Terra Gouging Fire, Meowscarada, Rotomosh, Donphan, Primarina, Jirachi, Mienshao, Toxtricity, and Sinistra. So the first thing you'll notice when you see this team is this Terra Gouging Fire guy. Also not worth max points, which might have been a bit of an oversight, because he is kind of the new Baxcalibur, except he has recovery. So yeah, that guy's pretty good, and I think this team does support it pretty well. He has Fast Knock with Meow and the pivoting. He has the Rotom Wash for good resist pivoting, and they cover the weaknesses pretty well. Donphan for the removal, more knock. Then we get to the fifth one, Primarina, and Quang just decided to force a Primarina on this team. The Jirachi is actually not a bad fit here. Same with Mien, another, again, more momentum, more knock. Toxicity, and then one big point here is that he sniped Serp on Sinistra, which big ups on that.
Yeah, and then he got sniped back by Daniel with, what's it called? Minial, I think.
No, that was on Serp. So, that was on Serp as well.
Was that on Serp again?
Yes. Okay. All the snipes were on Serp.
Yeah, Quang's team was interesting. I do like the momentum because he's obviously got Primarina, Meow, Rotom, Mienshao, Toxtricity, Jirachi. Everybody's U-turning / volt switching / flip turning, and that's obviously going to be good when you can bring in stuff like Terra Gouging Fire to either set up or throw off like a photosynthesis boosted hit. I like the hazards again. Meowscarada can hazard stack. Jirachi can, what's it called? He's got rocks, Donphan rocks. And Donphan as the early spinner I think it's okay. It's not the
end of the world. It's fine in this gen.
It's been shown to be able to reliably get rid of rocks and other hazards.
Yeah, he does good options to break early and to break these teams down in so many different ways to open up for the Gouge win con. I would say the only real spot where the weaknesses I started to come into was when I looked at this team, and it's pretty telegraphed. So a lot of these mons are all doing the same thing. And I think for the most part, gouging is also going to be the win con in most of the weeks. The only mon that I really saw a lot of flexibility with on this team was the Jirachi.
Yeah.
And that was one of the major things that I like. I think it doesn't mean it's a bad thing because this team is good at what it does, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, if the Gouging Fire goes down, as since we're recording this after week 1, we have the power of hindsight. I think Gouging Fire got sacked in Brother Quang's game, and he didn't really get to do much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if that's like a main source of your offensive pressure. The only other thing that I think this team could do with is a better ghost resist than just Meowscarada, because that won't be resisting Spectre, who's in on Sablo's team right there on the side.
I picked up on that too, and I did check, and Quang did luckily miss the Spectre matchup, but there's some other ghost types drafted that he could be playing, and I think some of those could cause his team some annoyance. It's like Goldango, I think he has the Rotom Wash for, which isn't that bad, but then I looked and I was like, Sarah led with Terra, that could be scary. Like even the Brambleghast could be annoying. He's going to be forced to run no item. I mean, I guess he has the gouging for that, but it's just this team is generally annoyed by ghost types, and there are quite a few solid ones.
And you can, I also think there's a 5-point Ursaring that's not been drafted as well, so you can drop that. That's Sinistra.
Yeah, and it could give him solid backbone.
Yeah. Right, and also I should mention that we're gonna cover all the teams, and then we're gonna give our rankings at the very end. So
yes.
So shall we move on to Sablo's team?
That sounds good with me.
Okay, so Sablo's drafted Spectria, Tinglu, Terra Enamorus, Glimora, Dragonite, Empoleon, Terra Hitmonlee, Illumise, Thwackey, and Typhlosion. Now you're going to notice that this team's quite top heavy. We've got two pointers and one pointer drafted. Having said that, his top tiers are pretty good. Being Spectra with Terranamorous, that's pretty insane. Special presence. Ting Lu is a solid defensive like switch in for those guys with a hazard support with Glimora too. And then he's got a Dragonite, which I quite like on this team. It's the only, along with Hitmonlee, it's like the only physical outlet, which might be a little bit problematic, but it can definitely carry some weight. And then Empoleon's his only momentum guy for this team, for the Spectra, which works in theory, but I think Spectra could definitely have some more. Actually, no, there's a U-turn Thwacky. What am I talking about? And a U-turn Illumise. Oh my god. But yeah, so I do think there could be some better pivoting to bring in Spectra and Terranamorous specifically.
But yeah, you look at this team and like you said, it's just a pretty big top 6 team. I think the top 6 work really well together though. You have the Spectrier and the Enamorous who are getting support, well, even the D-Knight and that too. They're all getting supported by the Ting Lu and the Glimora hazards. And then I think Empo is the Mon that brings this team all together. Now, I do think that means it's going to be pretty pressured to cover certain resists and to just in general like facilitate the momentum on this team, like Aggro said, which is one of the bigger weaknesses. But overall, this top 6 still functions really well together.
Yeah, it's nice that Empoleon doesn't have to run rocks, I think, so you just you can slap Flip Turn on for free.
Yeah, he's going to be like momentum, knockbot, pretty like, yeah.
Yeah. I do like his... oh, sorry, yeah. Go ahead.
You go. Where we're getting into like kind of the more the weaknesses, like you look at this top 6, and then you go after that, and it's like, you can include Hitmonlee in it, I would say, but if you're having to bring the Thwacky with the Hitmon, then you're benching 2 of your top 6, which I don't like, which is why I don't think that's like, I don't think the Thwacky really counts here. Typhlosion doesn't really count. We did see the Illumise come week 1 to help with the Ligant H matchup. So I think the Illumise also here is not bad, but it's kind of just showing the line between like a 7 and an 8 Mon team.
Yeah. I do think the bottom tiers are bringable. Obviously, Sablo did bring it, but yeah, I would say I do like the Hitmonlee with it's like one of his better ways of pressuring steel types on this team.
Yeah, I like the Hitmonlee as a breaker here for sure.
Yeah, like you can run reckless Terra fighting and break for Enamorous. I know that Enamorous can't Terra in that case, but yeah,
Enamorous can also be physical. So like if you need some physical pressure as well. And then the one other thing I noticed with this team is like these physical ice types are like certain ones like Kyurem that can flex ice could be really annoying for this team. But thankfully he only plays backs. But like you look at this team and you look at backs and I'm a little worried for our guy Sablo.
So okay, I'm sure Sablo can overcome such a problem. Okay, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. The only other thing was I said that he might struggle versus good fighting types, but yeah, we saw Illumise. Yeah, Illumise shut down Lilligant, Hazui, so not a problem. Okay, shall we go on to Jimmy?
Yes.
You announce, Vini.
Yes, you're correct on that. Okay, so Jimmy, go first off. He has Zamasu, Terra Necro, Terra Manaphy, Ursaluna, Thundurus, Fortress, Dragalge, Staraptor, Carbink, and Stone Journer. So there's definitely some aspects to a Jimmy team in here, but it's not as Jimmy as usual, I would say. Looking at what makes this team good, I think that this team is very bulky, and while being super bulky, it's able to exert its offensive pressure, which you can see in that top 3, even with going into Luna. And then you even have stuff like Fortress Dragalge that can be like good filler ins on this team to provide the util they need, the momentum. And I think overall it's just like a solid team that functions well, that plays around a lot of its setup sweepers.
Yeah, again, it's another top-heavy one, but I think he can bring a lot more Pokemon comfortably compared to someone like Sablo we just looked at. But I mean, I'm not sure why. I mean, you've only got 1 point. You can't spend on much. Stone Journer is not going to be coming to many games, but he can definitely bring Dragalge and Staraptor to stuff.
I believe, I think we saw him bring the Staraptor week 1.
I think
I wouldn't advise bringing it, so it's still, to me, it's like 7 solid ones that you want to bring, but even like Carbink has some decent matchup util.
Yeah, and Carbink's got hazards. Not that this team is lacking really in hazards. I like that he drafted Fortress with Zamazenta, so you don't have to be sad about your steel type not being able to run stealth rocks.
Yeah, especially I think when you have Ursaluna as your grounds. Now they also do have Necro to relieve some of that, but this is a Terra Necro, so it's like you kind of. I mean, I could see this as well being a problem. Is you do have Necro and Manaphy both being Terra. Now they can function without it, but like specifically, I think Manaphy gets a lot stronger with Terra.
Yeah, I don't. It's definitely not the end of the world. Only one.
Yeah, it isn't. For sure, it isn't.
Yeah.
When I looked at like weaknesses for this team, one of the main things I noticed is I think psychic types give this team a lot of trouble. There are definitely answers to it, but it's mostly Necro because you're Steel, you have Zama, and then Fortress, which isn't a psychic resist. And I would say like with there being Lottie's coming back in, more so Lottie O's with like Luster Purge, and even there being an Espathra draft in this division, you kind of want like a real Dark type or a real Steel to deal with those.
So at least you force some sort of coverage from the other guys, the psychics.
Yeah, and you just stop them from spamming their annoying psychic moves.
Yeah. I wanted to say that this team's got really good momentum as well for like being able to bring in Zama, Zentin, Ursaluna pretty freely, especially in its, you've got Manaphy, Thunderous, Fortress, Dragalge, Staraptor. They can all bring those guys in pretty freely.
This team functions pretty well. I like that he has, of course, knock for the Zama too, but he's got like those hazards early. He can pivot into his breakers, and then he has lots of setup win cons to win. So it's a really flexible team. And
then the only issues I saw with this is that switching into Earthquake might be a bit cumbersome. You've got your immunities, Thunderous and Staraptor, but they're not really going to be switching into ground types that are packing rock coverage. Fortress can probably take them on.
Mm-hmm. And like I'd say depending on the mon, but I think depending on the mon, it's like his natural bulk can help deal with it.
Yeah. And the other thing I noted was that the electric resists are Ursaluna and Dragalge, so both weak to ice type, which is what's it called? I mean, if there's any Terra electric types, then yeah.
That is like a common thing that happens with those teams. It is pretty hard to cover a lot of those like dual typings, such as Bolt Beam.
Yeah, Bolt Beam is good thing that actually no, there's still a few Bolt Beamers around, but
it's mostly Aleki.
Yeah. I don't think there's a Terra Raging Bolt as well. But you don't want to Terra that.
Yeah, I don't think Raging Bolt would want to be an ice type, yeah.
Yeah. You have to watch out for what's it called? Weather Wall electric types in the hail. Okay. I think we can move on then to Lax's team.
Yes.
He has drafted Ogerpon, Hearthflame, Terra Ogerpon, Hearthflame, Terra Quackleval, Lander Assyrian, Scizor, Hatterene, Baxcalibur, Overquill, Mimikyu, and Avalug Hizui. Again, maybe a common theme. This is another top-heavy team with only 9 Pokemon drafted. The other guys had 10. Where are my notes?
I can go if you
want. Okay, yeah. Go, please.
Well, the first thing I noticed on this team is its priority is like insane between Quack, Scizor, Bax, Overquill, Mimikyu. Like he has priority on basically everything. Like even the ones I didn't mention have some priority on them. So he did stack up on physical offensive ones, which is like one of the you can consider that maybe a negative, but I think it works here because they apply a lot of pressure. And you look at this team and it's like depending on the given matchup, like who's going to be the supportive mon, who's going to be the win con, who's going to be the breaker. He has so many options. And those mons as well, a lot of those offensive mons provide the util to the team that it needs as well, with Quack being the removal for the Ogerpon. You have like Lando, Scizor providing really good pivots and bulk. Hatterene's really good here. I like H-Wish, especially on this. And then you have Quillfish for the hazards and the Intim. Again, it's just, I think this team works really well together as an offensive team.
It does, yeah. You're definitely going to be, I mean, it's going to come down to can you pressure them before they start pressuring you. Mm-hmm. You did say that there is a lack of special guys, but
yeah,
it's not the end of the world if you're going to be, you've got stuff like Terra Ogerpon, Baxcalibur, Terra Quack that will definitely overwhelm any like FizzDef check. I would say that Quack is the early spinner. I know Hatterene's got magic bounce, but I mean it's not necessarily a negative that Quack's forced to spin because it benefits from the speed boost quite a lot. But it is something to keep in mind. I do like the hazards on this team. It's nice that stuff like Ogerpon can spikes and Overcore's got D-spikes and whatnot, and spikes of its own.
Yeah, I think the thing as well with Quack is like it's not really gonna be forcing Terra on itself. It's gonna be the Ogerpon for the most part here. And like the thing is, though, if you're thinking, oh, Quack is just gonna spin, maybe it sets itself up into a position where it just completely wins the game as well, and it can commit Terra.
There's definitely games where Quack just takes one Pokemon and starts snowballing away.
Mm-hmm.
I do also like the Mimikyu pick. We saw it be used quite effectively in his week 1 game. I forgot who he played. Was it Daniel? I don't remember. In any case, I think it was because
it was Daniel. It was Daniel. You're right.
Yeah, he used it to red card and like taunt, pain split, be a nuisance to that type of team. So I do like the draft. It's definitely well thought out. You can see
everything for the purpose.
Yeah, you can see everything looks like it's been drafted into place.
Mm-hmm. And the Mimikyu it's like always it can. It's a one-time check to basically like anything in these matchups, especially with a red card. You can check any of those the setup sweepers that might get through this team or might be a threat, and then it can't deal with priority.
Yeah, it's a nice option to have a nice failsafe. One negative thing I would say is the water resists on this team aren't amazing. You've got it's only Quack and Baxcalibur. I know Baxcalibur's immune to burns, isn't it? So you can't Scald burn it. Yeah. But I guess that switches in on Scald pretty freely. But then you've not got a Scald switch necessarily outside of that.
I mean, if we're looking at types, this team does not like. I think there's one that's really more prominent, and that's Flying. Its only resist is Avalugg, so this team could get
big Avalugg. True.
So this team, like, it can, if it's a physical Flying, especially, it can use the Intim to deal with it. And Baxcalibur also just owns Flyings. Potentially Lando too. But yeah, I'd say it's pretty Flying weak. I do think when like versus a team like this though, you have to commit your Terras like more defensively to deal with the Mons. But if an offensive Terra is able to outpace this team, it could be concerning.
Yeah.
The other like somewhat weakness I noticed is the natural speed is only at 110 with Ogerpon, and that's obviously coming from a Mon that like can't Scarf because it's locked into its item, and there's nothing else until Mimikyu after that. But I think the priority on this team makes up for it, and there are still Scarf options below that.
Yeah, the priority. I think it's if you don't like realize it straight away, it could bite you in the in the back when you prep for something like this.
Yeah, if this team did not have insane priority though, that would be a huge concern. But its priority is so good.
Okay, shall we go on to Daniel then?
Yes. That's me saying the team. So we have Daniel drafting Terra Shifu Single, Goldengo, Terra Espathra, Clodsire, Cyclizar, Dondozo, Moltres, H-Trode, Sylveon, and Minior. So I can't lie, the only positive I put on this team was that he sniped Serp of Minior.
It does. It looks very unorthodox, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I do think that he had some pieces to like different cores going here with the Shifu, Goldengo, and like you can maybe group into Spathra there, but then you slapped like these fat defensive guys in Dondozo and Clodsire on here, and I just don't see the synergy between the two. Like the only piece I think that works on both is Moltres to like bring the two cores together with momentum and resistances. I mean, he also drafted the Espathra, but you clearly cannot underestimate that as a 6-0 on lead in his week 2 match. But I think this team is like pretty gimmicky with I think how it's going to get its wins, and it's going to rely a lot on like stuff like Espathra to set up sweeping or Cyclizar getting a Shed-Tail into something that people can't deal with.
Yeah, it's weird because you've got Shed-Tail, Cyclizar with bringing in threats, and then you've got Clodzone and Dondozo that kind of sap any sort of momentum you could want on this team. Which I do think the more you use this team, will become apparent that they like, I don't know, they're kind of holding it back. It's like it's a weird mashup of like not stall, but definitely a lot bulkier Pokemon with ones they shouldn't really be not paired with, but they just don't have a lot of synergy with.
Yeah, I just don't think this team like takes advantage of what like Cyclizar, Shifu, Dango want to do. It just
Yeah.
Like, they break your Shedtail, sure, you might get a kill, but then you immediately have to go into your Dundos or your Clodsire and give up the progress you made and allow them to make their own.
Yeah.
I will say, you can go ahead.
I was going to say that the speed on this team is quite exploitable. It goes from wait, is it? Why have I written this down?
For option. I think he also has solid Scarfer, so it's not too bad here.
Okay. What else have I written? I think I said it needs another immediate pressure Pokemon. Because if your Shifu's gone down, then everyone else is like set up. You've got like Nasty Plot, Goldengo, or I guess you can put choice specs on it. Or
Goldengo could break, but it's past those top two. There's not a lot.
Like, you need a Sprothera to get go. Like, I mean, it can still run like Lumina Crash stuff where it doesn't have to necessarily calm mind up, but yeah, you definitely have to.
A lot of times on teams, one of the things I look for is like their 2 Terra users, and like even if I brought up the other ones before this one like truly both these Terramons are really reliant on Terra. Shifu in this gen without Terra does not hit very well, and it can get countered by other Terra easily. But then you have a Sprothera, which is like one of the most Terra reliant mons on this board, besides maybe like Aleki. And I think that's where like these 2 mons sharing Terra, so you're either giving up your win con or you're giving up your breaking. You're one of your primary breakers, which I don't like.
Yeah, they definitely clash heads. But I mean, it's not like this team won't win games. You've got, obviously we said the week 2 6-0 with the Sparta, and then Terra Shifu, if used well, I mean, even under like a sub from Cyclazar, that can win games on its own. So it's not necessarily like the team's going to hold you back too much, but it's not helping you out in the build-up. Yeah.
Definitely not.
I've not got any more notes on Daniel's team.
Neither myself.
Okay, let's move on to Dave. Dave's drafted Dragapult, Terra Sneasler, Terra Ogerpon, Wellspring, Mamoswine, Incineroar, Araquanid, Lucario, Cincino, and Florges. So again, another top-heavy team. I think Dave is the most top-heavy. I think it's fair to say he's drafted 9 Pokemon and he spent like I don't know, like a third of the budget.
I think Sablos and Laxes are more top-heavy still.
Actually, yeah, I guess because
look, his bottom ones are a lot more usable than theirs.
He stopped spending,
even though his top 3
are the first 3. Yeah, I remember whilst he was drafting, after like the top 3, he definitely had the lowest points left. But having said that, you do have a Dragapult, a Terra Sneasler, and a Terra Ogerpon at the end of the day, so it's not like those guys will be letting you down. Again, I think this team's a bit weird, sort of. I think Dave sort of panicked after spending so many points at the very beginning. I think there's a few awkward Pokemon here, especially like the Lucario and the Cincino, which is the only removal on this team, but tidy up.
Beast.
I think Araquanid's a bit of a weird Pokemon here. It's like, you don't need sticky webs realistically for anything. I'm sure there are other bulky water types available. Or maybe you got it to be the Earthquake switching as well, because this team, that's the only ground resist, I believe.
There's the Ogerpon as well, but yeah. But yeah, I think this team, like, so Dave did make transactions. It's important to mention here that we're covering pre-transaction teams, but like, yes. I want to touch on the post-transaction ones where I can as well. But for this pre-transaction team, the top 3, obviously, a lot, even some of the picks below, like the breaking ability and the win con ability on this team offensively is so good. But then just defensively, the holes on this team are insane. We already saw the Cinccino mentioned. There's only Mamo as the rocker. We saw the ground weakness. The big one that I saw was no flying resist. And also there was no fairy resist on this team as well. So this team just did not have the support to back up those top 3. And it didn't have the utility either. It could not facilitate these top 3 really strong mons. But then Dave now, I think he did, like, what I'll mention was Ogerpon on this team can potentially be spikes. And I think that Sneasler, Ogre, like both of them, they like Terra, but they don't need it, depending on what set you're bringing. Especially because he's not like forcing terrain Sneasler. But I think he did do a good job with his transactions, getting a few more things that could help out. So we saw Skarm picked up, which helps with the resistances a lot. And I think the spike support, really good here. Ninetales Alola, solid pickup for the Veil. Allow this team to be offensive. Rhyperior, another like solid rocking option, offensive. I think like it's still not a perfect team after the transactions, but I think it helps the top side of the month a lot.
Yeah.
Like the momentum, I would say is the biggest issue I still see with it afterwards. Like Incineroar is the slow momentum on this team.
Yeah. You covered all the resists. I said that it doesn't have very good normal resists, considering that there's only one big. Oh no, there's a couple of good normal types that are going to be annoying for this team, like the Lunas, and then the new turtle Terapagos, which we've seen terrorize many people in different divisions. So
I mean, that's kind of what happens when you draft a Lucario.
Yeah, I don't know why the raw Lucario was drafted. Even with Terra, was only 2 points more, but yeah.
He did fix that with the Rhyperior Skarmory pretty well.
Yeah, the transactions definitely make up for what is lacking in the normal draft. But yeah.
I agree.
I can't remember if Dave won his week one. I don't remember who it was against.
No, he did not. It was against Serp.
Oh yeah, okay.
Serp had Gyapdos, and he was able to exploit the team not having a flying resist pretty well.
Okay. Shall we move on to the unknowns then?
So we have Nunez coming in with Terratorn, G-King, Shifu Rapid, Rillaboom, Terragliscor, Archaludon, Bramblegast, Oricorio, Pelipper, and Alcremie. So this team started off with like the same top three we saw with Kaif last season, and it's kind of was like a Gen 8 team at the start there. Even Rillaboom can kind of be paired into that. Then he went and took the Nozermat approach and added on a lot of Rainmons, a lot of flying types. And this draft, I'm honest, kind of has me lost a little bit. So I'll let Aggro cover some of the positives of this team.
Yeah, I actually, you'll see the rankings at the end, I actually ranked this team a lot higher than Vini did. I quite liked it. I remember when we were drafting that you had got the top four and then drafted drafted Gliscor, which we all thought was a bit weird because it was like, like another ice weakness, another flying type. But I remember Noon said that he wanted it for hazards, which is fair enough because and then for the rest of the team you've got, I guess, Brambleghast and Archaludon for hazards, which is pretty decent.
I do think. So, I think the breakers here, he has the momentum. He has, the support pieces. I think he has the util as well. It's just, I think a lot of the typings can be a little weird with the types he's stacked and some of the types he's missing.
Yeah. I will say that I think, obviously, you've got the tried and tested Gen 8 Taunty Slowking duo, but this team doesn't really take advantage of Slowking being able to, teleport in a breaker other than, a Shifu. I guess you could I don't know, especially with Slowking getting the new snow teleport move, being able to bring in an ice type or something that can take advantage of it more.
Yeah, it is always nice, but it's not a necessity.
Yeah,
but that is kind of weird when you do have the Pelipper in the mix as well. But the main negatives.
Yeah.
Well, the main negatives I saw on this team was so after Torn, the speed falls off to Shifu, which is really not ideal. There is okay priority here, but with the rain mode, maybe he could have got a Swift Swimmer if that was the approach, so he could get more speed in there. And also no dark type. He does have some okay psychic answers, but for example, the Jirachi week one with that speed gap being a thing and the no dark type, that thing could have absolutely ate this team.
Yeah.
And luckily it did not, but I think this team is kind of vulnerable to mons like that. For example, there's the Latios in the pool. I don't think the Mew was drafted here, but then you still have Latios, you have Espathra. That team is vulnerable to those mons. It's one of the things I picked up on.
I do think Terragliscor can pick up, or maybe Terratorn can pick up some of the slack, but you aren't forcing them into certain Terra types because of that, certain coverage moves even. But I do want to say that I know Pelipper's a bit weird on this team. I think maybe, I don't know, not unnecessary, but for 9 points maybe it wasn't the best play, but it does synergize with Taunty, Shifu, and Arcaludon as well. So it's not horrible on this team.
It's not too bad.
But then
I think this
like,
team does have some like upside to it for sure.
Yeah, I mean the top five even you can bring every single week comfortably, and then throw on any one of your either flying types or other Pokemon.
Arcaludon, I think, is going to have to come a good amount. It should. It is part of the top 6.
I don't think it's too bad of a bring. You're always getting
it's a solid
drops
one
with it, and yeah. And then the only remover is Bramblegast, right? None of the other birds get default.
That's Bramble.
Which is a shame on this team.
I think Oricorio gets defogged. But this team, I don't think you really want to be defogging.
Yeah, you want to spikes them instead of the other way around. So
yeah.
Yeah, and then shout outs for drafting the 1 point Alchemy. Hopefully it can prove that it's worth more than 1 point this season.
Good budget pick. And I think as well, like the momentum on this team is just it's click U-turn, and that's what it does.
Yeah. Okay, shall we go on to Sage's team?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Sage's team. She's drafted Iron Valiant, Iron Treads, Terra Latias, Terra Ceruledge, Killer Wattrel, Quillfish, Shaman, Tyranitar, Politoed, Ice Cube, and Smiggle. Okay, when I first saw this team, I liked what I was seeing for the top 4 Pokemon, and then after that, there was some not questionable Pokemon, but I didn't necessarily understand why these guys were getting drafted. The double weather, you got T-Tar, Politoed. I don't necessarily see the synergy with them, apart from like Swift Quillfish and
Beast.
Killer Wattrel with Thunders and Hurricanes. But other than that, I do like the Iron Valiant, Iron Treads core. You've got hazards for Iron Valiant removal. Good speed with both of them straight away. Terra Latias, I think, is really good for 20 points. Perhaps it's slightly underpriced. And as we said before, lots of teams so far get exploited by fast psychic types. So that's a bonus already. And again, we said with ghost types as well, Terra Ceruledge will help with that. They're not Terras that necessarily clash. I think you could probably get away with running one of them not Terra, or even not bringing one of them, considering you drafted 10 Pokemon. So
11.
You've got a lot of what was it, 11? I can't count.
Yeah.
You drafted 11 Pokemon, which is a lot of more choices to have. Yeah. What else? What do you have to say?
I think this team. I think between we're looking at Valiant, Latias, Ceruledge together. I think either Valiant can break for Latias to be like a win con as the Terra user, or then you could have Ceruledge breaking for either of Latias, Valiant. I think those 3 actually work pretty well together, and I like that. And then Treads is the right support piece for this group of Mons. I think Quillfish is also really good here, type-wise, and the offensive spike support. It can switch into certain Mons this team wants help with. And I liked the Shaman pick. I think Shaman's solid for 8 points and good speed tier, etc. But yeah, I think the other picks is where it gets weirder. Killer Wattrel can have its matchups. It's not like it needs to come here to be the speed. T-Tar is, I think it does serve a role on this team. It maybe as a non-sand user, because I don't know how much this team likes the sand, but I think it's typing knockoff, maybe another rocker, not the worst. The Politoed is where, again, I'm kind of what the hell is this doing here? For maybe there's a Quillfish plus Killer Wattrel matchup that just goes crazy. And then shout out to the Ice Cube pick. That mon is a beast. That shit, Sage messed me up with that shit.
Ice Cube has not been brought yet, I didn't think.
No, it is not.
Yeah. And the 2 point Smiggle, non-Terra Smiggle.
Yeah, that one a little bit more questionable, but Smeargle is always something that you do have to consider at least a bit in prep to make sure they don't just roll up on you with they don't just spore them on for free. They don't just get you a webs and you can't do anything about it. It does have to be considered. And for 2 points, I think that's what you're going to get when you already have 8 or 9 bringable Mons pretty well.
Yeah. It just felt like a very weird combination of Mons at the very end for me. But I do like like you said, the top 4 They support each other well. They break for each other well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Josh?
Yes.
So we have Josh with Terrachiu, Zapdos, Roaring Moon, Clefable, Deoxys Defense, Corviknight, Hitmontop, Terra Torterra, Palossand, Basculin, and Volbeat. So this is another team that made transactions, but we're going to talk about the original team version of it first. So the first thing to notice in this team is it's probably safe to say it's the bulkiest team on the board.
Yeah.
And I think with that, it also brought like solid hazard control. And then I think the momentum on this team is also really good. Was something I liked about it a lot. Now that from there, I kind of go more into like the mid or like some of the more negative points I had. I think you look at this team and its breaker really is Chi-Yu. Moon can do a bit of the work, but on this team where it's the only one above 100, it kind of needs to be the Revenger in this case because there aren't a lot of like great Scarf options on this team. And then win cons, I looked at this team as well, and I was like, I only really saw Terra Torterra unless the Chi-Yu was just eating everything up. So yeah, this team I just felt was kind of pinched for its roles that these mons are filling.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to Daniel's team in that you've got like two really good, strong Pokemon with a really solid defensive backbone. But the difference is here that, as you said, there's good momentum on those defensive guys, which helps bring in Chi-Yu a lot. Again, we're recording this after week 1, so I remember his Chi-Yu in Josh's game had to pull a lot of weight, and then I think it got sacked, or it had to get sacked at some point, and then after that, there's not many. She said not many outputs to kill stuff with.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not to focus on only bad things, but the water type here is a Basculin, which is I think it got rectified in the transactions, but
kind of, I would say.
But yeah, so it means that your like the types that water types resist usually are not being resisted. So fire, ice. This team doesn't have great fire and ice resist. I mean, it's the Chi-Yu sort of, but Roaring Moon. Those aren't Pokemon that you want to be switching into many attacks, considering they're your like only offense really.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
something
sorry.
I guess so. Something I did like about like a lot of the excessive bulk on this team was mons like Clefable and Zapdos, which normally are like forced to run defensive, could be opened up to be offensive here. And that is somewhere that I saw like this team could have some potential. And I thought that was something that I liked. But then at the same time, you look at this and it's like the natural speed here, there wasn't a lot of priority. So that was also then lacking. So this team has its positives and its drawbacks at the same time.
Yeah, I think also, I'm pretty sure Josh changed his team to get a grounded poison, but this team doesn't have a grounded poison right now.
Mm-hmm.
And T-Spikes is on like every other Pokemon for some reason now, so...
Yeah, and specific mons on this team would hate T-Spikes.
Yeah, I think he got T-Spiked in his game, so it's sort of stuff where like it stops you from ringing, or the surprise factor of like unaware Clefable, if you're not boots, things like that, so...
Yeah.
But it's something that he rectified in the transactions, yeah.
We can go over those now if you want.
Yeah, let me pull them up.
I have them pulled up.
Okay.
So he dropped Deoxys D, Torterra, Basculin, Hitmontop, and
the
he changed off of, he didn't, the Palossand, yeah. I was going to say, I thought he also dropped the Volbeat, but he did not, looks like, from here.
Yeah.
So with dropping those ones, he got Ursaluna Blood Moon, so he upped his ground type, gave him another like bulky breaking option. Kind of another special mon though. Okidogi, the grounded poison, I think the breaker fighting here is solid. Araquanid, so he has a real water type now. Potential like breaking options there as well. Then he changed Clef to Terra. So Clef can now be a win con for this team as well. So I think he did shore up some things. I think he lost the Dio, which I did actually kind of like here, but I think this team still functions pretty similarly. He's just shored up a few holes.
Yeah. You just definitely have to be careful with how you play your, the guys are going to force progress for you, because if they're gone, then you're not killing anybody.
Mm-hmm. I'm also looking now, though. His only rocker has went to Clefable, which is Terra.
Yeah, that is a shame for Terra Clef.
Yeah, and he lost his best spiker, which I believe. Now I don't actually think he has spikes. Yeah, so his hazards game has went down hugely. He does have Corv, so he can focus on removing with his team. And he does have a lot of really hard hitters, but I think when you have a bulky team like this, having like those hazards to chip them down when they can't break you, and every time they come in to try and break is really nice. I want to check.
I don't think OG. Yeah, I don't think that gets T spikes, right?
I was just gonna go check. It does not get T spikes.
You've got Araquanid with Sticky Web at least, I guess, for your GU.
Can make up maybe for some of these teams, like in some matchups, for its lack of natural speed and priority.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on to should we go on to Craft's team?
Yes.
It's my turn to say it, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. Craft has drafted Darkrai, Ursaluna Blood Moon, Terra Curum, Tentacruel, Bronzong, Terra Comfy, Cleavor, Scyther, Houndstone, Magmortar, and Virizion. So this is more of a spread out team, points wise. One thing I noticed straight away was that there's quite a lot of special attacking Pokemon. You've got Darkrai, Ursaluna, Curum, and of course, Curum's got same attack stat as special attack stat, but I think it's more common to be running special moves on it. Comfy as well. The only physical guy is like Cleavor, I guess, Houndstone.
Big Scyther.
And the Scyther. So Pokemon you're not going to be able to bring very regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how I'd say Darkrai is very well supported on this team. Like, I don't think you break Darkrai's like switch-ins very effectively, stuff that resists Dark, like Fairy types, what's killing Fairy types on this team very well. Like, you've got Tentacruel Bronzong to hit them super effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what do you have to say, Vini?
Honestly, this team to me was just it's very odd at first glance, and I kind of got lost in like what it actually wanted to accomplish. I think Darkrai is obviously a really good cleaner here, and I think that is kind of what the role it has to play. Because, like you said, the team doesn't really break for it. You do have the Terra Kyurem, which I think is a really good win con on either physical or special, but it could also break, and that's maybe where you can break for the Darkrai. Blood Moon here, like the Tentacruel, Bronzong, Comfy are like decent filler picks. The bottom 5 were just so odd to me. Like, I don't.
They're there, yeah.
That is like the main thing I've noticed with this team is like I at least this version of it, where it's like, what is this team planning? How is it going to play? Like, I could see it having the options and the pieces, but I just didn't see it coming together.
Yeah.
Now,
what was it? I completely forgot what I was going to say. I know Craft does usually draft like in an unorthodox way. If you look through his DGBA draft history, as it were, but he did make a lot of changes to this team, perhaps for better or for worse.
this is the only one that I am not confident is for the better. But I guess actually looking at Josh's afterwards, the Josh's also opens up some holes, but we can get into the changes if we want.
Yeah.
I also can pull those. I have them pulled up. So
okay.
So we start by dropping Terra Kyurem, Ursaluna Blood Moon, and you notice like someone's like Blood Moon and Araquanid switch teams through this transactions. He dropped Cleaver, Virizion, and Magmortar. So like this is by far the biggest set of transactions by any teams. Like he did double the points that anyone else did. And to do that, he picked up Blaziken, Terapagos, H-Zoro, Amoonguss, and Flygon with Terra. Starting with Terra Kyurem and ending with Terra Flygon is like by far the biggest note to make. I thought Kyurem was like the centerpiece of this team, and he's now changed that to being like this Darkrai Blaziken core, which like maybe one can break, one can clean. I think we've seen Terapagos. Terapagos is a really good mon. Then he also got the H-Zoro, which I think the H-Zoro is actually quite interesting with that offensive core. The biggest question now, though, is these two Terra users. Just Flygon and Comfey.
Yeah, but perhaps the the worst on paper Terra combination I think people have drafted, but
Like, I think Comfey is a really good secondary Terra option. Now, Flygon on the radar as a Terra option in general, not really, but this is Craft, so he's cooking. What I'll say as well is big ups for sniping Serp on the Terrapagos in transactions. That was a very big criteria for some of these teams for me. But yeah, what are your thoughts on like this new team?
I do like Darkrai having a little bit better support with Darkrai Blaziken. I think is a decent call, them two together. Terrapagos, again, I think that guy he's probably underpriced at this point, but he's been terrorizing the other divisions. So another good, again, special attacker to add to the team. Blaziken does sort of solve the physical issue. And I will say that you can kill the idea with Terra Curum. Well, no, you can kill the man with Terra Curum, but you can't kill the idea. And Terra Flygon's here to fill the shoes.
But for 16 points cheaper.
They can both Dragon Dance, both Scale Shot, both Outrage.
Pretty special too. It's faster. It's off the ground. But yeah, something that I'm also noticing now looking at this is this team's hazards, kind of on both versions, but more so this one. The last one was mostly reliant on Cleaver, but like you're putting the hazards pressure on Bronzong to rock, and there's no spikes. There is T-spikes with a Tentacruel, but Tentacruel is also like needing to remove here. He needs to do momentum, and like these guys are also really important resists for the team. So
yeah,
I think this team is kind of going to be forced to play really fast because it just can't support itself a lot of the times.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on to Pythons?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I have to say this team, despite it being my least favorite, sorry, but this team drove me crazy looking at it. So we start off with Terra, Iron Boulder, Greninja, Iron Hands, Uxie, Hydropple Terra, Azumarill, Dunsparce, G-Weezing, and Rotom-Fan. So we do start positive, so if you have any positives, would you like to start aggro?
Okay, the good positives I wrote down were it had good hazards. So you've got Greninja, Uxie, Weezing doing all their hazard business. I said it's got decent pivoting. Again, you've got Uxie, Iron Hands, Gren, but he's not going to be necessarily a good pivoter. And then Rotom as well. And the priority was decent, I said. Azumarill, Greninja. Are they the only guys? Oh, no. Maybe Iron Boulder gets quick attack. You never know.
I believe it's just those two. But Iron Boulder could, technically.
Yeah, what are your negative thoughts, Vini?
I'll add a positive for Steph Audible. I think the breaking on this team into like its win cons is pretty solid. But the big issue I have here is like speed tiers can be overstated, but when you have a team like this where it goes from Boulder and Grand down to Uxie, which doesn't even want to run speed, and it's like the hazard tier, and then to Rotom Fan, that's a mon that probably isn't coming to a lot of matchups. So you're essentially then going from Gren to any of your slow guys being fast. So any mons below Gren on this team, unless they want to Scarf, just get to run full bulk versus this. And I think when you have another team here where this one's really bulky and it's relying on bulky breakers, I don't like having to deal with that. Also, the fairy resist on this team, I think a lot of these mons don't love fairy types, and the fairy resist is G-Weez. Like we did see week 1, the Hydropple got Terra, did a poison. I forget what it was facing, but it did have to Terra into that fairy resist type. And that is taking away from Boulder, which like I think Boulder and Gren, one wants to be the Revenger here, like one wants to be the win con, and then you have your breakers and like your hands and your Azumarill. Like I could see this team working, I just don't think it has the pieces. It has the pieces, it doesn't come together. And it was facing the Iron Valiant Terra Lottie week 1, which like terrorizes this team not having a fairy answer.
Was it not against Palkia's team?
No, that was Croc. No, it was against Sage.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember T-Spikes went up and then had to be removed with Terra Poison Hydrapple, which was a bit funny. But yeah, I mean, Iron Boulder, Greninja, Iron Hands, they can put a lot of punch a lot of holes in teams on their own. But it is going to be difficult when those guys are running near to max bulk. When they're not going to be punished for it necessarily.
And I think with this team, it wants to play bulky because of its bulky pieces, but then I think it just loses the bulk war, and I don't think it can outpace the other teams either because they're able to run full bulk on a lot of their mons.
Yeah, I mean it can definitely still win games. You've got Iron Ball that can definitely clean stuff up if Greninja 9 Hands have put enough work to let it clean up.
This team definitely has the pieces to do stuff.
And I respect the Terra Hydrapple. That guy needs to come more in the limelight. It's a shame that it's paired with Terra Iron Boulder, because I think to get full value out of Iron Boulder, you're going to have to terrestrialize it, because otherwise it's weak to every common priority attack, pretty much, apart from extreme speed. So, yeah.
It's not like the Hydrapple. It's I think was only 1 or 2 points to actually up and Terra it.
Yes.
Let me check. I think
it was only 2.
No, it's 3. But still, it is still you still are going to be wanting to Terra the boulder, but the Hydrapple can come and check things if needed. It's not ideal. But
yeah.
I'm ready to move on whenever you are.
Okay, so next is Sup, and he has drafted Terra Latios, Samurott Hizui, Cinderace, Tinkaton, Zapdos, Galar, Sandy Shocks, Terra Snorlax, Weezing, Sableye, Blossom, and Bruxish.
And I believe this is the last of the teams that has made transactions so far. But
I believe so, yes.
Okay. He hasn't put them through yet, so we don't have to talk about them.
Actually, no, I should probably put them in. I know what they are.
If you want, I can talk about his current team, and you can put them in, so we can talk about them after.
Okay. Let me pull up his new team.
Surf has Terra Latios, which, to be honest, I mean, I've only used it 1 week so far, but it was a little underwhelming. But I think he has a lot of really good offensive pieces around it. He has the HSAM to set these hazards up. He has Cinderace for fast revenging momentum. The Tinkaton, just a really good filler piece. The Zapdos here, which can be a breaker. It could also be a revenger. The Shocks for another hazards option. And then he's got a lot of these more niche defensive pieces below it. And that Snorlax for that big sponge, maybe like a Terra Wincon. But I think, just looking at this top 6, I think it functions really well together. And these mons are able to keep momentum. They're able to keep pressure up. They're able to set up towards a Wincon, which I really like.
And there's great hazards in the top 6 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the hazards is the centerpiece of this team because it's able to chip everyone down through that and momentum. And then, even these lower picks, I think actually are decent value as well. Weezing, not as good this gem, but still some solid value. And I think Sableye is a really good mon for this team. And just team.
Yeah, I like it for fighting types. I remember Sup had to draft Weezing for fighting types, I believe, and then
Sableye
covers that even further.
He brought the Weezing week 1 because he faced a Sneasler. And this is one of the more negative points. So his water answers are Latios, Samurott, and then it falls on Blossom. So he played the Ogerpon water week 1. So he did kind of have to bring the Blossom, but still, water plus U-turn or water plus fairies or something like that is really annoying for this team.
Yeah. I can tell you what the transactions were. The Sandy Shocks has become Terra because the Snorlax was dropped. And he dropped Weezing, Sableye, Blossom, and Bruxish. Now he's got a Serena, a Petulant, a Regigigas, and a Vikavolt.
Yeah, I would say, just looking at those quickly, I think the Terra Sandy is could have maybe its matchup where it goes crazy, maybe with a booster, maybe Iron Defense, Body Press, who knows. I think Serena, good filler piece on this team for momentum. It's got the removal as well, which the original team, it did not have, which was something that you could also mention. And then the Petulant that it now has, I think that is that physical defensive one with the resistances this team really wanted. And it kind of combines the Weezing and the Sableye. Again, more momentum on that mon. And it just gives into a one mon, so Surf wasn't having to bring a Blossom and a Weezing to these matches. And instead he can bring a Serena and a Petulant now.
Yeah, so definitely very positive changes to the team.
Mm-hmm.
And even he now has Sticky with Vikavolt, which somewhat abusable with his team members.
Yeah, it gives him an
Never
option
gonna
for like
hurt.
a slow electric to volt turn if he wants to match it for that. Although Vikavolt's just not as good this gen without Roost, but I don't hate it here
Yeah.
for 4.
Yeah. Did you mention that the team's got good priority? No, that was one of my notes I've got.
I didn't mention priority, but it definitely does like some really solid options. Mostly in Samurott Cinderace. But those are
Aquajet Bruxish, which has been dropped, but he will be remembered.
I know Serp was definitely considering bringing that week 1. But yeah, I think the speed control on this team is really good. Because you have the 2 really solid Thunder Wavers, a lot of good Scarfers here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Which leads us into
move on.
The other Quick Feet promoting coach. With Great Tusk, Terra Bundle, Thundurus T, Heatran, Ogerpon, Muck Alola, Haxorus, Rabombi, and Dunsparce. So looking at this team, I mean, Terra Bundle is the centerpiece of this team, and I think this team does accomplish that. Like we saw him absolutely terrorize week 1 with that. Tusk is just one of the best non-Terramons, if not the best, with all the util it gets, the offensive pressure it can provide. And I think he's filled in some like solid pieces around that. Got the Heatran for the resistances, some more hazards. I like the Ogerpon here, and I saw him utilize it week 1 with the spikes. I think non-Terra on this team actually works. But yeah, that's just the basic premise of this team that I see.
Yeah, it's got okay-ish pivots. You've got Ogerpon, Thundurus, Rabombi bundle itself, I guess, to bring in that bundle, which, again, as you said, that is definitely the centerpiece of this team. You like Terra Water it, Terra whatever, and then start blowing things away. I will highlight on some slightly less positive things. I thought that the Great Tusk is going to have to do a lot of work with like fighting types and ground types. The team doesn't necessarily want to switch into those types, like your ground resistors, an Ogerpon and a Thundi, and I guess Rabombi if you want to count that. So Great Tusk is going to have to take the physical ones on, at least with its physical bulk. Same with fighting. Your fighting resists are Rabombi and Thundurus again. Not the best. So, but it's not like Great Tusk is bad at switching into physical Pokemon. So can take on any of the physical ones, but stuff like an Iron Valiant looks like it's going to be feasting on a team like this.
I think this team would really like appreciate a Uxie, for example.
Yeah,
on it. But yeah, I think that is a point that you mentioned. There is no slow momentum on this team, which I think when you want to bring this bundle in to just click buttons, the slow momentum piece would be really nice. And the Tusk definitely is pressured here, and that is definitely a concern. I would say I think as someone who's watched Shade for a while, I think he did fall back on some drafting tendencies here, but I think this team is still solid enough to where it can work. I will say it is kind of funny here to me that a lot of these mons, half of this team is filled with Terra mons, or mons that really like Terra. And I would say only the Haxorus one is the one that I'm on without it. But
yeah, it's a bit of a weird draft. I don't know. I guess it's like a comfort pick or something. It's a bit of a weird.
It is a comfort. But yeah, I just think he's got these blanket defensive mons in Tusk and Muck, and instead of getting some resistances and getting some slow pivots here, which I think would be nice, because right now the way that the team works, I think it has to exert offensive pressure so that it's able to force mons out and pivot through that.
Yeah, and it's not the end of the world if bundle goes down as well. I'd say as well, because he's still got the Haxorus, Ogerpon, Thundurus. They can still. I know it's non-Terra Ogerpon, but they can still put in a punishment, as it were.
Yeah, he's got a lot of ways to win the game and a lot of ways to break to get to that point.
Yeah. I think he brought his Dunsparce week 1 as well, I believe.
He played Jimmy, and Jimmy has. Let's check what Jimmy has.
Oh no! Why would he do that? Maybe
he did not bring it into his Omicron.
I'm thinking of the Dunsparce. That who's got that? That was Pythons who brought that. Okay, never mind. But yeah, Dunsparce can probably come to the Ghost matchup game and hopefully like get a bite off and glare the Spectre or something.
He does still have Makalola, so it's like
Yeah,
kind of he doesn't need both of those. Like I think this team it probably should have put points, like certain points in specific other places, and then it would have gotten even better, but it still works. And that is the general premise of this team.
Yeah, you can definitely rehash like the bottom three guys into
I could see that, yeah.
Something better. Okay. Anyway, moving on to JCaps, who's drafted Terra King Gambit, Palafin, Terra Raging Bolt, Screamtail, Talonflame, Lilligant Hizui, Quagsire, Revavroom, Greedent, and Vespiquen. So right off the bat, I'd say he's drafted two very cool Terra Pokemon, King Gambit, Raging Bolt. Slightly, I guess they're both slightly Terra reliant, especially. I mean, you pretty much always want to. Yeah, you pretty much always want to Terra your King Gambit, which is a bit of a shame for Raging Bolt, but there's definitely scenarios where you can do one or the other. And then those two together with the Palafin is pretty crazy offensive pressure. You've covered the physical and the special side of those three, which is pretty nice. And then that's paired with decent support Pokemon and like Screamtail with Wish Support, Thunderwave, Encore stuff, Talonflame and Lilligant to Defog. I believe they both get Defog. And then you've got decent hazards in Quagsire, Revavroom if they ever come. I think Revavroom came week 1. And Vespiquen, I'm pretty sure gets spikes and T-spikes. But
I hope it does not come, but yeah.
Should never bring that.
I look at the top 3 on this team though, and like the priority on those and the win con ability on those is just disgusting. And like this does look a little bit like Slick's team from last season, but I think those 3 are really strong. I know JCaps likes his Screamtail and it like gives him a backbone for comfort. I just hope he doesn't like slow the pace of this team, because I think some of the spots I noticed this could lack a little is like breaking. Now he can use one of these top 3, probably the Raging Bolt, maybe the Palafin to break. But I think otherwise breaking is kind of just on this Lilligant. And his natural speed, being the Talonflame and the Screamtail, isn't ideal. The removal, I don't love that he's just on 2 defoggers, because this team with Spike Stack or T-Spikes up is disgusting. But when it comes to it though, I just think this team, those top 3 with this, like the support tools that he did draft with it, are just really, really gross.
They're definitely gonna be overwhelming. Like
for sure.
There's so much like variety that like Palafin and Raging Bolt can run. You know, Palafin can be like, you know, physical, special, bulk up, scarf, whatever, band. Raging Bolt, maybe a bit less variety, but that guy can run, you know, AV, proto synthesis stuff with its what's it called? Booster energy. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of avenues.
This is JCaps drafting a team that I think people can agree on is pretty good, which is funny.
Yeah,
Another thing I wish this team would have got actually is knockoff to get rid of some helmets.
Yeah, he's got actually, but no knockoff. Well, I think Greedent
gets it, but yeah. Okay. I would hope Greedent should not be coming unless you're like super scared of the Spectrier or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it can definitely do a job for probably 1 game, I'd say maximum, as your ghost immune Pokemon. But yeah, I do like this team. It's a JCaps team that's not full stall for once as well.
It could be a full stall mode on this, or no?
You never know. Yeah. Okay, I don't have any more comments for JCaps as one.
Yeah, not really either. It's funny though. I think despite like a lot of like some of the more potentially negative pieces that I think I brought most of them up, this team still did come together really well, and the upsides of it are just so high. But yeah, that leads us into the second last team being Bobbert, which has Dio Speed, Terra Annihilate, Iron Moth, Excadrill, Serp, Terra Avalugg, Noivern, Gastrodon, Grimmsnarl, and Electros. So when I look at this top 2, it does give me like the vibes of the Darkrai plus Annihilate core, where you want to take advantage of like fast U-turners, maybe like a dark type move coming off. It's not as good of a pair as Darkrai is, but I could see Annihilate getting some free Rage Fist boosts like that. And also potentially the Defiant with the Dio being a spike setter. The Dio can knock helmets for it, maybe. See some cool stuff like that. Picks following that, though, are kind of where it gets like a little more weird to me. I think 13-point non-Terra Moth's not bad, but then we have the non-Sand Drill. Maybe he wanted removal there. The non-Terra Serp, which like Terra Serp was really expensive. But like, I guess the regular Serp here also isn't the worst with like Knock, Glare, stuff like that. Then there's stuff like Noivern as well, another speed option. I think Grimstorm I like here, but like to me, a lot of these picks, I'm just like, how does this fit into a cohesive team? Is where I'm kind of trying to see where this team goes.
Yeah, it does seem not that they've been thrown on without thinking, but they don't necessarily synergize the best. I do, as you said, I do like non-Terra Moth, non-Terra Serp. They're a lot cheaper, and I think it's definitely a lot smarter to not terrestrialize them. Having said that, there's a Terra Avalug, which I hope never comes as Terra. I'll stop the Annihilate from terroring, but yeah, at least it's not the only remover though, because you've still got Drill, which is pretty reliable, and you've got Noivern, which gets defog, I'm pretty sure. What else did I also said that the speed on this team is pretty good. You've got obviously Dio speed lives on its own with Regieleki, I guess, in speed tiers, but then you've got Moth, Serp, Noivern, Extra Drill. They cover each other. Down from the 120s downwards.
Yeah, Dio speed is just always a nice mon there. Like it's not something you're accounting for, but when you get it for your speed tiers, it just does so much. But it's not like he just did one of those Dio speed teams where it's just like that, and then you drop off and get no speed after that.
Yeah. I do like the Electros and the Gastrodon pickups. I think they've got their matchups. Eel is a decent flying resist if you don't want Extra Drill to be like taken advantage of by certain flyings. And then Gastro can come in with its own hazard support and just be like anti-setup and whatnot, clear smog.
I can definitely see this team working. I will say something that I'm actually thinking about now is it could struggle picking 6 mons a week because I think it's spread out a lot of its rules and maybe its resistances, its typings across these 9 mons to where it does function solidly as a team. But having to pick 6 of them each week, you might not be able to cover everything you want to.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Not like a huge downside, but just something that I would like thinking about with this team.
Yeah, what are the rockers on this team? It's Dio,
Drill, and Gastro.
Yeah,
Annihilate also gets rocks.
I think he ran rocks on Ape week 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think I like Gastro here more so as a spiker if you don't want to run it on Dio as well.
Yeah, it definitely opens stuff up. I think, does it get T-Spikes as well, or is that only Quagsire?
No, T-Spiker here would be Moth, yeah.
Just the Moth, okay. Which is a fine T-Spike in itself.
Yeah, if you want the option. T-Spikes could work on this team, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Shall we move on to the final team then?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, so is it me saying it? I forgot.
It's you, yeah.
Okay. So PowerKid's team, he's drafted Garchomp, Terra, Regieleki, Metagross, Blastoise, Zarude, Volcanion, Enamorous Therian, Muck, and Gallade. Okay, so obviously PowerKid's on the wheel pick, so he was able to get Garchomp, Terra, Regieleki on the wheel, which is pretty good, I'd say. Terra, Regieleki lasting that long is pretty good. And then being able to support those two, I will say, first of all, Garchomp, great with hazards. It's probably the main hazard setter on this team because you've only got Metagross to get up rocks and then Muck with T-Spikes, which is, it's not the end of the world because Garchomp can get it up pretty freely. And then pairing that with good Rapid Spin and Blastoise and nice speed options with Zarude.
Yeah, when I look at this team, how I think, like, if he wants spikes, it does have to be the Chomp, but I think Metagross and Blastoise are going to be filling those roles of, like, spinner, rocker, probably knock off on Metagross, flip turn on the Blastoise, and you got that. But then you do have, like, stuff like Zarude, really good resist. I think this team is really well built around the Lecky. This Lecky isn't pressured to do a lot of things. Like, it doesn't have to be the Water Breaker. It doesn't have to be the spinner. It just gets to be a Lecky. and just click buttons. And then I actually kind of like the Volcanion pick here as an additional breaker. Takes pressure off other mons. He has the H-Wish with the Anam, the Gallade. It did come to this game. I'm not really sure what it's going to do here, but maybe another breaker, maybe another win con. The Muck for cheap, like knockoff T-Spikes, grounded poison. I think this team, just as an offensive team, puts on a lot of pressure and can set up a Lucky to win games.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about this is Gallade, but
yeah,
I mean, that's because
the other eight are just the other eight just work really well together.
Yeah,
I will say something I noticed as well is like now more so is you have Zarude Chomp and then Speed falls off after that. Obviously there is the Aleki, and this team does have good Scarfer, so I don't think it's the end of the world, but just something to keep in mind. I do think of these teams though, this is probably the most cohesive like full team if we're talking, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's got all the pieces it needs in place.
Mm-hmm.
I really do like the Metagross pickup. I think it's a much better Pokemon in Gen 9 with all the buffs it's received, and it's it's definitely got a decent role on this team.
I'll also say if Palkia really wants to with this team, he can go like full balls to the wall and go like hyper offense, and like he can even bring in Smash Toys or like Scarf Water Spout. The Metagross could go offensive. Like now these mons do generally fill util roles here, but there is flexibility with them as well. Because some of the other mons can flex to be defensive depending on the matchup. Yeah. Like literally every single one of these mons besides Aleki has some defensive capabilities, and all the top 7 can also be offensive at the same time, which is just so useful.
It is. I mean, there's definitely other drafts on here that will struggle to get past something that's so bulky and so offensive at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then and we said Healing Wish with an Amoros is going to be pretty nice with stuff like Garchomp, Regieleki. You can play a bit more recklessly with them, and
for sure,
not be punished as much.
Healing Wish is always good to have.
Yeah, I think he obviously the week 2 incident against Terra Sparthra, but I think week 1 he played Palkia beat Craft, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, Palkia won week 1 pretty solidly. I would say, like, obviously the Sparthra incident did happen, but that's just something you can change in prep for next time. Like, something as simple as putting the Roar, I would say Roar is probably safer into the Sparthra, but Detail back on it, or Roar, and they wouldn't have been in the same situation.
Yeah. Okay, then, we can reveal our final rankings. Yeah. As I said at the beginning, these are our personal opinions. They're not fact, although we're pretty high tier Pokemon power ranking makers, so they're pretty accurate. Any problems, direct them straight to Sun. So without further ado, should we
wrap it up?
How should we reveal these, Vini? Just go up
from
bottom to top?
Sure. I thought you already had revealed them, but...
Well, I mean, we'll read them out.
I can verbally say them, but I'm sure thank you, Kyle, for editing this and recording for us, but I'm sure Kyle will have the graphic on screen, but I'll read them out verbally. So he had Pythons coming in at 16, Dave at 15. Again, a reminder, this is like the original teams pre-transaction. Turk 14, Kraft 13, Josh 12, Nunez 11th, Bobbert 10th, Sage 9th, Jimmy 8th, Shade 7th, Serp 6th, Quang 5th, Lax 4th, Sablo 3rd, JCap 2nd, almost winning PRs, and then Palkia, Mod Bias in 1st.
Yeah, so again, if you're unhappy with the PRs, that's okay. Show us
we have
that you're able to use your team
right
in the
now.
weeks.
These guys knew that we were recording the PRs.
And we'll be pinging you. Actually, you'll see the video after we've pinged you, but we hope you schedule your games for this coming week. Any closing remarks, Vinny?
No, I'm just happy for a good season of Swarm.
Okay, I think that's all we have to say. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for your time, DGBA Swarm, and anyone else watching the video. Goodbye.
Okay.